Hey guys, I'm back, and it's time for me to do another review of a PSOne Classic that I purchased off of the PlayStation Network, or PSN. I don't know why I did that, I meant to do air quotes. But I'm going to be reviewing today Final Fantasy Tactics. As you can see, I actually own the Greatest Hits original PlayStation version of the game. Why am I not reviewing that? I don't have a disc. It's a long story, and I'm not going to get into it, but I had to settle for the PSN version. I had to play through this game. I never got a chance to when I had the game. Missing disc aside, I never got past the second battle. So I really wanted to strive to finish the game to see what I missed out on, all those years ago. So there's a couple things I want to address in this review. Mainly whether or not this game deserves to be played, and whether or not it deserves the $10 price tag that it has. Specifically because, in my opinion, 7 and 8 and some of the other PSOne Classics deserve a $10 price tag. Others, should be exactly where they are at the $6. So it's finicky, and it's kind of frugal to decide whether or not an extra $4 is really necessary. But I'm just weighing that in on part of my review. So let's get down to the main points. What can I break Final Fantasy Tactics into to kind of critique it or review it? And really, unfortunately, there's only two things: the gameplay and the story. That's it. There are no explorable towns in this game. It's all kind of menu based. You do have this kind of overworld where everything takes place. Traveling. Seeing where you have to go next, objectives, points of interest, and locations. But all of the shopping is done on these little dots on this little world geography kind of map. And I think that's part of the strategy or tactics part of Final Fantasy Tactics. I mean, it kind of lives up to its name in that respect. There's not a whole lot to really do other than a few, some side quests, and that you can go into these bars and have propositions to get extra gil or whatever. And unfortunately, you never participate in any of those. It's always sending units out from your squad, your militia, your little group of party, and it takes days for that to happen, and you lose your people. And I think it's pointless. And I really did mess with it maybe once. They introduced later where you can poach enemy monsters and get gil from that and crap like that. It's kind of useless to me. And an issue that I had was really the lack of stuff like that. I mean, all it is battle, 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 story, plot device, battle, 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 grind your levels, get decimated, go back, do it again. And that's basically all this game is about. I mean, you have to be prepared. It does implement a gameplay element that is turn-based strategy. Battles always take place on a grid. You have usually between five or six people, maybe sometimes more depending on what kind of guest characters you have in your party at the time and their relevance to the story. But the point is that you only have a group of 5 characters to go up against sometimes 1, 2, sometimes a lot of enemies. Which brings me to why I initially stopped playing this game, because I never did the tutorial and I got stuck in the second battle and I could never win. There's 2 versus 8 or 4 versus 8, I don't quite remember. And that's not important. What I want to stress is, this is a tactic game. And there is a tutorial, and that's part of the issue. You have to sit through the tutorial before you can actually play the game. The game is not readily gamer friendly, I guess is the word I want to use. It's not gamer friendly right off the bat. You have to go through an entire list to even understand the gameplay mechanics, and that's a bit of a problem. But to kind of illustrate what kind of gameplay you're going to be playing, I mean, I did say it's turn-based and it takes place on a grid, but the first game that comes to my mind is the PS2 game Makai Kingdom. If you've ever played that, then you get an idea of what this game kind of plays and how it plays. Most attacks are in ranges or squares or whatnot, heights, and it's detailed. But unfortunately, it's the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. It's always these, predetermined setup. For the story and the plot, it's always these predetermined battles. Everything's being laid out for you, and it's a matter of crushing your enemies, and it gets tedious after a while. However, there's some benefits to those. That being that your enemies are always at a set level. Enemies, however, level up to whatever level your strongest character is. So it's kind of except for a few of the bosses, which you don't even get to towards the latter second and third part of Tactics, when they start showing up. The toughest part about this game is the random encounters. It's not the mandatory ones, it's the random, because enemies scale to your level. And that's really where most of the fun came for this game for me. And that was grinding levels, finding random battles constantly, gaining new jobs, classes, because this is another job class type of Final Fantasy. And the story kind of fell by the wayside. And that brings me to what I wanted to talk about, the story. Gameplay aside, the story is what I think Final Fantasy is known for. And Tactics, it drops the ball. It takes place in the world of Ivalice, which, if you've played 12, same world, different time period, I think. But it shares a lot of similarities to 12, which is something I did not like. It's political based. And, it's the warring nations, kind of, one superpower trying to take over the other, and your party's, stuck in the middle of it. That's nothing new to a Final Fantasy game, especially some of the ones I like Final Fantasy IX. But what really ticks me off, and what I really didn't like about Final Fantasy Tactics, is that, 9, having an undertone of warring nations and, political things like that, 9 goes off into a more fantasy-based thing, a more, insanely off the totally different tangent from that. Tactics sticks to its political plot, and I'm sorry, it just does not. I don't like that in a Final Fantasy game. You get introduced to tons of characters. Names are off the chart. Something they're not even memorable. Most of the time, you learn about these people and you hear about them in this kind of political, history kind of speech, and sometimes when you have the face to go along with the name, you forget them. They're not important to the story. I feel that there wasn't enough bosses for the story. It's kind of defeat army factions and then defeat a boss, and then it's just it. I don't know what to say. The story is not my cup of tea. It's political based. It's boring. The gameplay is addictive. It's interesting. It's strategy. It's kind of it gives you a sense of completion if you're going for job classes and leveling your characters. However, with that all being said, I don't know what else to talk about. I think that's pretty clear as to what I feel Final Fantasy Tactics brings to the Final Fantasy series in a nutshell. I'm going to go ahead and give this game an 8 out of 10. It's not the worst Final Fantasy that I've ever played, but it's miles away from being my favorite. It's a good turn-based strategy game, but if you're looking for an in-depth story, you might have it here if you're wanting, political-based, really detail-oriented, wartime kind of storylines. But in terms of a Final Fantasy storyline, this one kind of falls by the wayside. So I'm giving Final Fantasy Tactics 8 out of 10. Personally, I think it should only be $6. But if you want to bite the bullet, $10, be my guest. Later.